Only poetry or madness could do justice to the noises heard by Legras's men as they ploughed on through the black morass towards the red glare and the muffled tom-toms. There are vocal qualities peculiar to men, and vocal qualities peculiar to beasts, and it is terrible to hear one when the source should yield the other. Animal fury and orgiastic license had whipped themselves to demonic heights by howls and squawking ecstasies that tore and reverberated through those nighted woods like pestilential tempests from the gulfs of hell. Now and then the less organized ululations would cease, and from what seemed a well-drilled chorus, the hoarse voices would rise in sing-song chant that hideous phrase or ritual. Funglu, Mglau, Nath, Cthulhu, Alai, Waga, Nagal, Fatang. Then the men, having reached a spot where the trees were thinner, came suddenly in sight of the spectacle itself. 4 of them reeled, 1 fainted, and 2 were shaken into frantic cries, which the mad cacophony of the orgy fortunately deadened. Legras dashed water on the face of the fainting man, and all stood trembling and nearly hypnotized with horror. In a natural glade of the swamp stood a grassy island of perhaps an acre's extent, clear of trees and tolerably dry. On this now leapt and twisted a more indescribable horde of human abnormality than any but a Sime or an Angola could paint. Void of clothing, this hybrid spawn were braying, bellowing and writhing about a monstrous ring-shaped bonfire, in the centre of which, revealed by occasional rifts in the curtain of flame, stood a great granite monolith, some 8 feet high, on top of which, incongruous with its diminutiveness, rested the noxious carven statuette. From a wide circle of 10 scaffolds set up at regular intervals from the flame-good monolith, as the centre hung, heads downwards, the oddly marred bodies of the helpless squatters who had disappeared. It was inside this circle that the ring of worshippers jumped and roared, the general direction of the mass motion being from left to right in endless bacchanal between the ring of bodies and the ring of fire. It may have been only imagination, and it may have been only echoes, which induced one of the men, an excitable Spaniard, to fancy he heard antiphonal responses to the ritual from some far and unilluminated spot deeper within the woods of ancient legendary and horror. This man, Joseph D. Galvaz, I later met and questioned, and he proved distinctively imaginative. He indeed went so far as to hint of a faint beating of great wings, and of a glimpse of shining eyes, and a mountainous white bulk beyond the remotest trees. But I suppose he had been hearing too much native superstitions. Actually, the horrified pause of the men was comparatively brief in duration. Duty came first, and although there must have been nearly 100 Mongol celebrants in the throng, the police, relying on their firearms, plunged determinedly into the nauseous rout. For 5 minutes, the resultant din and chaos was beyond description. Wild blows were struck, shots were fired, and escapes were made, but in the end Legras was able to count some 40 sullen prisoners, whom he forced to dress in haste and fall into line between 2 rows of policemen. 5 of the worshippers lay dead, and 2 severely wounded ones were carried away on improvised stretchers by their fellow prisoners. The image on the monolith, of course, was carefully removed and carried back by Legras. Examined at the headquarters after the trip of intense strain and weariness, the prisoners all proved to be of very low birth and mentally apparent types. Most were seamen, with a sprinkling of Africans, but largely West Indians or Brava Portuguese from the Cape Verde Islands, gave a colouring of voodooism to the heterogeneous cult. But before any questions were answered, it became manifest that something far deeper and older than African fetishism was involved. Degraded and ignorant as they were, the men held with surprising consistency to the central idea of their loathsome faith. They worshipped, so they said, the great old ones, who lived ages before there were any men, and who came to the young earth out of the sky. Those old ones were now gone, inside the earth and under the sea, but their dead bodies had told their secrets in dreams to the first men who had formed a cult which had never died. This was that cult, and the prisoners said it had always existed and always would exist, hidden in distant wastes and dark places all over the world, until the time when the great priest Cthulhu, from his dark house in the mighty city of R'lyeh under the waters, should rise and bring the earth again beneath his sway. Someday he would call, when the stars were ready, and the secret cult would always be waiting to liberate him. Meanwhile, no more must be told. There was a secret which even torture could not extract. Mankind was not absolutely alone amongst the conscious things of the earth, for shapes came out of the dark to visit the faithful few. But these were not the great old ones. No man had ever seen the old ones. The carven idol was the great Cthulhu, but none might say whether or not the others were precisely like him. No one could read the old writings now, but things were told by word of mouth. The chanted ritual was not the secret. That was never spoken aloud, only whispered. The chanting meant only this: in his house at R'lyeh, dead Cthulhu waits dreaming. Only 2 prisoners were found sane enough to be hanged, and the rest were committed to various institutions, all denied a part in the ritual murders, and averred that the killing had been done by the black winged ones, which had come to them from their immemorial meeting place in the haunted woods. But of those mysterious allies no coherent account could ever be gained. What the police did extract came mainly from an immensely aged mestizo named Castro, who claimed to have sailed to strange ports and talked with undying leaders of the cult in the mountains of China. Old Castro remembered bits of hideous legend that paled the speculations of theosophists and made men and the world seem recent and transient indeed. Thank you so much for watching my video. If you enjoyed it, please thank Ada, Molinai, Hain, Dark Griever, Sandrake, and all my wonderful patrons, without whom I would be unable to dedicate the time, effort and resources I do to all my channels. I can never thank them enough. Now I hope you will join me again for more lore narration, but until then, as always, thanks for watching.